impatient gardener. If I put in a tomato plant, I go running out there in my robe the next morning to see if there's anything to pick. I don't have my mother's knowledge of plants and seem disinclined to learn much about them, even though I bought a very nice book for beginning gardeners. The book has been in my kitchen for months and has been opened once because I mistook it for a cookbook. I don't have my mother's talent for picking out what to put in pots. I'd rather just ask someone to do it for me. But this year, I vowed to do it myself. So I just came back from the store with a bunch of plants. They were not single plants that I deliberated over to see how they'd look next to each other. They were plants that were already mixed in a pot, and I thought they looked pretty nice together. And so, plunk, I took them out of their pots and put them in mine. Then I stood back to admire how they looked. I did enjoy having my hands in warm earth. I did enjoy pressing on the springy dirt to get those plants more properly embedded. Inspired by this small effort, I went out onto the front porch and got my tacky little fountain running. And now I'm going to go and buy 3 more plants, plus a little Buddha for the front porch, because looking at a little Buddha always calms me down. I feel like he's always saying, don't worry so much, you'll get wrinkles and bellyaches and more gray hair. Plus you will be focusing on the negative when the positive is dazzling and also here. My Buddha is part German. So I'm not exactly going to be a gardener like my mom, but I have inhaled with my eyeballs the deep, deep red on the geranium plant, which is exactly what I think she would have done. This reminds me of a poem that a kid wrote, entitled, "Rose, where did you get that red?" In a related story, yesterday I went to buy some birdseed, and when I got out of the car, there was a guy looking like he was going to ask me for spare change. Yep. Can you spare $1 so I can get something to eat at the Burger King? The BK was next to the pet store. So I said, come on, I'll buy you something to eat. As we walked to the BK, he told me his name was Isaiah, and that was in the Bible. Did I know that? Yes, I said. He told me he was from New Orleans, and that he'd been here since Katrina. He said he'd been looking for a job, but man, it was tough. As we waited in line, I asked him about his efforts to find work. He said, you need an ID to find work, and I don't have an ID. I said, don't you just go to the DMV or something? And he said, yes, but they charge a lot of money for an ID. I thought, I have no idea what obstacles these people face, and if I wasn't blushing a little, I should have been. When it was our turn, he scanned the menu and seemed to turn into a little kid. His eyes grew wide and his mouth opened slightly, and he asked in a near whisper, what can I have? My heart broke a little, and I asked him what he would like. He scanned the menu again. A number 4, he said. What size drink? The woman behind the counter asked, and he very carefully said, medium. I wanted to tell him, get a large, but it seemed the moment was lost. Cookies? The woman behind the counter asked, and he said, nah, they bad for your teeth. So I paid for his lunch, and I told him I hoped he enjoyed it, and I went to get what I needed at the pet store. I thought about that young man later, and I felt like banging my head against the table for not sitting with him while he ate, for not offering my name after he told me his. I thought, maybe I should have taken him to the DMV, but that seemed like more than I was able or willing to do. But why? He is one of those fallen in the deep water and was reaching his arm out as I passed by. Would it have been so very hard to have helped him more than I did? Was I that busy? No, I was not. Lapsed Catholic or not, I ought to go to confession. I ought to say, bless me, Father, for I have sinned. My last confession was 200 years ago, and I have committed stinginess and uncaring in the face of obvious need. But,